a lot of this is just getting some guys ready who are playing on Saturday.
Last year?
Yeah, Watson.
Yeah.
What year is this?
I'll tell you this. Now, he took too many sacks, and I'll put that on him. I'll put that on him in the system. He's got to be better. But he's deadly accurate. He's got great touch. And when you watch him in that first preseason game, the thing that I loved, and I mean loved, is his ability to slide and his movement skills in the pocket and still being able to create space, not eyeballing the rush, but feeling the rush.
The NFL just witnessed something that has never happened in its 104-year history. Saturday night, 4.3 million viewers vanished into thin air. Not gradually. Not over weeks. In real time, as one coaching decision sent shockwaves through every network boardroom, sponsor headquarters, and league office in America. What you're about to discover isn't just about football. It's about the moment traditional sports management collided headfirst with modern entertainment reality, and the explosion was so catastrophic that Roger Goodell himself canceled his weekend to convene emergency crisis meetings. This is the story of how one stubborn coach's decision to bench Shedeur Sanders didn't just anger fans, it triggered the most unprecedented ratings collapse in NFL history, and why league executives are now calling it organizational suicide behind closed doors. 2 weeks ago, the Cleveland Browns were riding high. Their preseason matchup against Carolina attracted 4.5 million viewers, exceptional numbers that had sponsors celebrating and networks already planning primetime showcases around their rookie sensation. The Sanders effect was real, measurable, and profitable. Then Kevin Stefanski made a decision that will be studied in business schools as the perfect example of how to destroy millions in value with a single choice. He benched Sanders. Not for injury. Not for performance. For development. What happened next wasn't just a football story. It became a case study in fan power, economic reality, and the brutal truth about modern sports entertainment. We're talking about empty stadiums, fleeing sponsors, and a franchise watching its value evaporate in real time while cameras rolled. Today, I'm taking you inside the 72 hours that changed everything, revealing the panic-filled conference calls, the desperate damage control attempts, and why this moment represents a seismic shift in how professional sports will operate forever. Because what started in Cleveland is about to reshape the entire NFL. The numbers don't just tell a story, they scream a warning that echoed through every corner of the sports entertainment industry. When Cleveland's Saturday night matchup against Philadelphia kicked off, network executives watched their real-time viewership data with growing horror. The audience didn't slowly drift away, they fled en masse the moment Sanders' absence became clear. From 4.5 million viewers to barely 200,000. That's not a decline, that's a complete audience revolt. To put this in perspective, some late-night infomercials draw better numbers. Local access programming outperformed an NFL game. The mathematical impossibility of such a collapse sent data analysts scrambling to verify their systems weren't malfunctioning. But the numbers were real, and they were devastating. Inside CBS headquarters, senior executives reportedly stared at their monitors in disbelief. One allegedly texted colleagues, "Are these numbers correct? This can't be real." The advertising implications hit immediately. Every commercial slot had been sold at premium rates based on projected viewership. Suddenly, those investments became worthless. The ripple effects spread instantly. Sports betting platforms reported a 67% decrease in Browns-related wagering. Fantasy football participation crashed. Daily fantasy sites saw minimal Browns player selection. These weren't just television ratings, they were economic indicators of a complete entertainment product failure. Network production meetings turned contentious as directors realized they were broadcasting to empty air. Camera operators received instructions to minimize crowd shots, revealing the embarrassing reality of a professional sports venue that looked more like a high school scrimmage. The visual storytelling that makes NFL broadcasts compelling simply couldn't exist when the story was organizational incompetence. The international implications proved equally catastrophic. The NFL has invested billions in global expansion, positioning American football as premium entertainment worldwide. Sanders represented the perfect ambassador, young, charismatic, social media savvy. International audiences don't care about Cleveland's history or coaching philosophy. They want stars, excitement, entertainment. Without Sanders, international viewership evaporated, threatening years of careful market development. What made these numbers particularly terrifying for league officials was their speed and decisiveness. Gradual ratings declines can be managed, explained, addressed over time. Instant audience abandonment suggests something far more dangerous, a fundamental disconnect between what organizations think fans want and what fans actually demand. The Sanders situation exposed this gap brutally, publicly, and expensively. The gambling industry's response provided another layer of economic devastation. Major sportsbooks had prepared extensive prop betting markets around Sanders' performance. When he didn't play, those markets collapsed. DraftKings executives reportedly contacted league offices expressing serious concerns about Cleveland's handling of the situation. The message was clear: Sanders drives revenue streams the NFL desperately needs, and benching him threatens the entire ecosystem. Behind the polished public statements and carefully crafted press releases, NFL headquarters descended into barely controlled chaos. Sources familiar with the situation described Commissioner Roger Goodell's reaction as unprecedented panic when the ratings data arrived. Weekend plans were canceled. Crisis management teams assembled. The league's most powerful executives found themselves confronting a scenario their decades of experience hadn't prepared them for. The emergency conference calls began within hours of the game's conclusion. Network partners demanded explanations. Broadcast executives who had paid premium prices for Browns content suddenly faced the prospect of delivering unwatchable television to their audiences. The conversations reportedly turned heated as media partners questioned whether the league could guarantee competitive entertainment value. What emerged from these closed-door discussions was a fundamental recognition that the NFL's traditional power structure was being challenged by forces beyond their control. For decades, the league operated on the assumption that fans would watch regardless of individual personnel decisions. The Sanders situation shattered that assumption completely. Multiple sources confirmed that several team owners participated in emergency discussions about the Cleveland situation. Their concern wasn't philosophical, it was financial. If fan boycotts could force organizational decisions, what precedent did that establish? The competitive balance and coaching autonomy that owners had carefully protected suddenly seemed vulnerable to market forces. The most revealing aspect of these crisis meetings was the language used by participants. Terms like existential threat and league credibility dominated conversations. These weren't executives discussing a minor public relations problem, they were leaders recognizing that their fundamental business model was under attack. Goodell's response revealed the depth of concern at the highest levels. The commissioner, who had navigated countless controversies, found himself facing something entirely new, a situation where traditional damage control methods were useless. You can't spin away empty stadiums. You can't public relations your way out of collapsed ratings. The market had spoken, and its verdict was devastating. The international broadcast partners added another layer of complexity to these emergency discussions. European and Asian markets had been specifically marketed Sanders as a reason to invest in NFL programming. When he didn't play, those investments became worthless overnight. International executives demanded guarantees that similar situations wouldn't recur, creating contractual obligations the league couldn't fulfill while maintaining coaching autonomy. Perhaps most damaging was the recognition that Cleveland's situation could spread. If other franchises faced similar fan revolts over personnel decisions, the league's ability to maintain competitive balance would be compromised. The emergency meetings weren't just about managing one team's crisis, they were about preventing a complete transformation of how professional football operates. The urgency of these discussions reflected a harsh reality. The NFL's traditional authority structure was being challenged by economic forces more powerful than organizational hierarchy. Fans weren't just expressing displeasure, they were wielding economic weapons that could destroy franchise value instantly. The league's leadership found themselves confronting a new paradigm where entertainment value trumped traditional football decision-making. Kevin Stefanski built his reputation on process, development, and meritocracy. His systematic approach had produced success elsewhere, earning respect throughout the coaching fraternity. Players appreciated his consistency. Colleagues admired his principles. The football establishment viewed him as a model of professional integrity. Then he encountered Shedeur Sanders, and everything changed. The philosophical collision was inevitable. Stefanski's system demanded that players earn opportunities through practice performance, meeting attendance, and gradual development. Sanders represented something entirely different, generational talent that transcends traditional development timelines. The coach who preached patience met the player who demanded immediate recognition, and the resulting conflict exposed fundamental flaws in traditional football thinking. Sources close to the coaching staff described the internal pressure as unbearable. Stefanski found himself trapped between competing forces that couldn't be reconciled. Ownership demanded explanations for collapsed revenues. League officials expressed concerns about national embarrassment. Players privately questioned decisions that seemed to prioritize philosophy over winning. The media scrutinized every word, searching for cracks in his carefully constructed facade. The press conferences following Sanders' benching revealed visible strain. Stefanski's usually confident demeanor showed signs of uncertainty. His carefully chosen words deflected questions while revealing nothing. The coach who had always controlled narratives suddenly found himself defending the indefensible to audiences that had already rendered their verdict. What made Stefanski's position particularly impossible was the objective evidence contradicting his development narrative. Every metric supported Sanders starting immediately. Completion percentage, yards per attempt, quarterback rating, expected points added, all indicated elite performance. The analytics community called his decision statistically indefensible. Sports scientists found zero physical limitations. Medical professionals confirmed complete readiness. The data overwhelmingly contradicted coaching philosophy. The locker room dynamics added another layer of complexity. Veterans who initially supported Stefanski's meritocracy approach began reconsidering their positions. Why? Because empty stadiums and collapsed ratings affect everyone. Endorsement opportunities disappear. National television appearances get canceled. The entire franchise becomes toxic through association. Players who signed with Cleveland expecting relevance suddenly faced irrelevance through coaching decisions. Assistant coaches reportedly expressed private concerns about the situation. They understood the career implications of a collapsed season. Nobody wanted association with historic failure. If the Sanders situation destroyed the season, the entire staff faced termination. Self-preservation instincts activated as philosophical unity fractured under economic pressure. The most devastating aspect of Stefanski's predicament was its preventability. Multiple sources confirmed that Brown's leadership knew about Sanders' drawing power. Marketing departments had prepared campaigns around his presence. Season ticket renewals explicitly mentioned Sanders. The organization had built expectations that coaching decisions then destroyed. Stefanski's defenders pointed to his track record and principled approach. They argued that sustainable success required proper development regardless of external pressure. But those arguments rang hollow when stadiums emptied and sponsors fled. The NFL isn't purely about football anymore. It's entertainment business requiring different calculations than traditional coaching philosophy provides. The psychological toll on Stefanski became increasingly apparent. Sources described a coach who had always controlled situations suddenly finding himself controlled by forces beyond his influence. The man who preached process discovered that process means nothing when the process produces economic catastrophe. His reputation for consistency became a liability when consistency meant consistently making the wrong decision. What happened in Cleveland wasn't just fan disappointment, it was a coordinated revolution that demonstrated unprecedented consumer power in professional sports. Within minutes of Sanders' benching announcement, social media exploded with hashtags like #FreeShedeur and #BoycottBrowns trending nationally. But this wasn't typical social media outrage that fades within news cycles. This was sustained, organized, economically devastating resistance. The digital uprising represented something entirely new in sports entertainment. Fans didn't just complain, they organized. Viewing parties were canceled. Season ticket holders announced immediate cancellations. Merchandise purchases stopped. The economic weapons deployed against the Browns organization were precise, coordinated, and brutally effective. Local Cleveland media found themselves documenting something unprecedented: lifelong Browns supporters publicly burning team merchandise. These weren't casual fans making temporary statements. These were generational supporters, families who had endured decades of disappointment, finally reaching their breaking point. Their message resonated clearly: give us Sanders or we're done. The grassroots infrastructure supporting the franchise through decades of failure suddenly evaporated. Browns backers chapters nationwide reported membership cancellations. Sports bars traditionally packed for Browns games saw reservation cancellations. The community connections that sustained franchises through difficult periods disappeared overnight. What made this fan revolt particularly powerful was its demographic diversity. Sanders attracted viewers who had never watched football previously. Young audiences, international markets, casual fans suddenly invested specifically because of one player. When he didn't play, they didn't just lose interest, they actively campaigned against the organization that disappointed them. The economic impact extended far beyond ticket sales. Concession revenue projections showed catastrophic decline. Parking operators reported pre-sale disasters. Local businesses dependent on game day traffic faced potential bankruptcy. The fan revolt wasn't just affecting the Browns, it was threatening the entire economic ecosystem surrounding professional football in Cleveland. Corporate sponsors found themselves caught in an impossible position. They had invested millions expecting Sanders' exposure. Marketing campaigns built around his rookie season became worthless without playing time. Brand executives who don't care about coaching philosophy suddenly care deeply about return on investment, brand visibility, and consumer engagement. The international fan response proved equally devastating. Sanders had attracted global audiences who viewed him as their entry point into American football. When he didn't play, international viewers didn't just tune out, they actively discouraged others from investing time in a league that would sideline its most compelling performers for arbitrary reasons. Perhaps most significantly, the fan revolt demonstrated that traditional franchise loyalty was being replaced by player-specific engagement. Fans weren't just supporting the Browns, they were supporting Sanders. When organizational decisions conflicted with player preferences, fans chose the player. This fundamental shift in loyalty patterns terrified NFL executives who had built business models around geographic franchise allegiance. The speed and coordination of the fan response revealed sophisticated understanding of economic leverage. Modern sports fans aren't passive consumers, they're active participants who understand their power and aren't afraid to use it. The Browns learned this lesson expensively, publicly, and permanently. The financial devastation extended far beyond simple ticket sales into every revenue stream supporting professional football. Each ratings point represents millions in advertising revenue, and Saturday's collapse potentially cost networks eight-figure losses. But the economic carnage was just beginning, spreading through corporate partnerships, sponsorship deals, and ancillary businesses with surgical precision. Major corporate partners began activating escape clauses within hours of the ratings disaster. Progressive Insurance, headquartered in Cleveland, reportedly evaluated stadium naming rights implications. First Energy considered their association with a franchise that could empty stadiums through coaching decisions. Local businesses that had invested heavily in Browns partnerships suddenly faced worthless marketing investments. The gambling industry's response provided another layer of economic devastation. Sports betting platforms had prepared extensive markets around Sanders' performance, generating unprecedented rookie wagering volume. When he didn't play, betting volume crashed. The message to league officials was clear: Sanders drives revenue streams the NFL desperately needs, and benching him threatens the entire ecosystem. Merchandise sales collapsed with mathematical precision. Browns gear sales plummeted 78% following Sanders' benching. Online traffic to team websites crashed. Social media engagement evaporated. These metrics matter to corporate partners, potential sponsors, and anyone considering Browns association. The brand toxicity spread rapidly through interconnected business relationships. The ripple effects reached unexpected corners of the economy. Uber drivers reported decreased airport traffic for Browns games. Hotels saw cancellations mounting. Restaurants modified staffing plans expecting reduced game day crowds. When sports teams collapse, entire cities suffer economically. Cleveland understood this painfully through previous experience, but this felt different, self-inflicted rather than circumstantial. Network executives faced particularly brutal financial reality. They had paid premium prices for Browns content, expecting massive audiences driven by Sanders' appeal. Advertising inventory for Browns games suddenly became toxic. Sponsors requested contingency plans. The financial implications stagger imagination as millions in guaranteed revenue evaporated through coaching decisions. Fantasy football industry revenues crashed alongside traditional viewership. Sanders drove enormous engagement, participation, and revenue across multiple platforms. Daily fantasy sites reported a 71% decline in Browns player selection. Season-long leagues saw a mass exodus from Browns players. The downstream economic effects multiplied throughout an ecosystem worth billions annually. Corporate marketing departments faced impossible situations. Campaigns built around Sanders became worthless without his participation. Nike reportedly designed entire promotional series featuring Sanders. State Farm prepared commercial campaigns. Pepsi planned tie-in promotions. These investments became worthless when coaching philosophy trumped business reality. The international economic implications proved equally severe. NFL's global expansion strategy suddenly depended on one coach's decision in Cleveland. International broadcast partners had paid premium prices expecting Sanders-driven content. When he didn't play, those investments became worthless, threatening years of careful market development and billions in future revenue potential. Perhaps most devastatingly, the economic carnage was entirely preventable. Every financial projection, market analysis, and revenue model had identified Sanders as the primary driver of Browns-related economic activity. The organization knew his value, marketed his presence, and then destroyed it through coaching decisions that prioritized philosophy over financial reality. What we've witnessed in Cleveland represents more than a coaching mistake. It's a fundamental shift in how professional sports will operate forever. The Sanders situation proved that in modern entertainment, star power trumps traditional authority, fan preferences override coaching philosophy, and economic reality destroys principled positions that ignore market demands. Kevin Stefanski learned the most expensive lesson in NFL history: you cannot fight generational talent, suppress transformational figures, or ignore the future. The league will never be the same because fans demonstrated power that executives never imagined possible. When 4.3 million viewers vanish instantly, when sponsors flee overnight, when entire economic ecosystems collapse through single decisions, traditional power structures become irrelevant. The revolution already succeeded. Saturday simply confirmed what everyone except Stefanski already knew: the NFL needs Sanders more than Sanders needs the NFL. His influence transcends professional football into entertainment, culture, and global sports marketing. Cleveland accidentally triggered a transformation that will reshape how leagues, coaches, and organizations approach talent management forever. The message resonating throughout every NFL headquarters is crystal clear: give fans what they want or face economic annihilation. The Sanders effect proved unstoppable, undeniable, and revolutionary. Professional football just learned that stars transcend systems, talent beats philosophy, and entertainment destroys process. This isn't just about Cleveland anymore, it's about the future of sports entertainment. And that future belongs to the players, the fans, and the market forces that just taught the NFL its most valuable lesson: you cannot stop what people demand to see. What do you think about this seismic shift in sports power dynamics? Have you ever seen a fan revolt create such immediate economic consequences? Let me know in the comments below, and if you want to see more analysis of how modern sports entertainment is evolving, make sure you're subscribed because this story is just beginning.